All I want this holiday season is for the Indianapolis Colts to finish this season clean and strong. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And you guys can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hello, everyone. I am Zach Hicks, your favorite film nerd, over at horseshoehuddle.com. And we have a fun show for you planned today. We're going to talk about what I want for the rest of this Colts season, even if it doesn't include the playoffs, just what I want to see from this Colts team to finish out 2024. Then we're going to get into a little bit more festivities here with the holiday season. We're going to talk about what I want for the offseason, what would be the biggest gift for me and this Colts organization this offseason. But first, this time of year is perfect time for reflection. And we've done a lot of reflecting on this show this season in a very negative way. And I think you guys understand why. I mean, it's not been the most positive season. I mean, Sunday was a fun game for the Colts, but overall, it's been a fairly disappointing season for the Indianapolis Colts. But I want to take this in a different direction today. I want to spread some positivity this holiday season and talk about some things that are big wins for this Colts team in 2024. So in honor of the season, let's talk about the biggest wins of the year for the Indianapolis Colts. And honestly, I think one of the biggest overall wins, and again, this might seem like a pretty bleak list overall because it hasn't been a great season, but I do think one of the biggest overall wins for the Colts has been Jaylon Jones kind of emerging as a really solid outside starting corner. Maybe he's not some star player like maybe the Colts expected him to be this year for whatever reason, but Jaylon Jones is just a really, really solid outside corner. And I think in a lot of ways, he's been the cornerback that Rock Ya-Sin was supposed to be when the Colts selected Rock Ya-Sin with the 34th overall pick back in 2019. Just a guy who is really solid at breaking up passes, a really sturdy outside player, doesn't get beat too often. And when he does, he usually comes away with a tackle right afterwards. Just a really, really solid outside starting corner. And I think there were some question marks about that coming into the year. We kind of all assumed Juju Brents would be the starter on the outside and had some hopes for him as one of the starters. We obviously all know what Kenny Moore is in the slot, one of the best slot corners in football. But Jaylon Jones, it was a little bit of, we kind of liked what he did his rookie season, but we wanted to see if this was going to be a real thing. Can this 7th round pick from 2023 be a legitimate starting corner in the NFL? And I think the answer to that question is yes. I think Jaylon Jones really has emerged as a good starting corner in the NFL. Now, I think they need to get a true number one, either playmaker / lockdown guy aside from him on the outside. That way he can be more of that number two guy who's just a really, really strong number two. But I do think Jaylon Jones emerging as just a good, strong starting corner in the NFL is such a big win for this team because we didn't think they had any starting caliber corners on the outside coming into the year, especially once Juju Brents went down with an injury. With Jaylon Jones emerging as a pretty reliable guy on the outside has been a big, big win for this team. Talking about other emergences from this team, Nick Cross and Alec Pierce taking really big steps forward. I don't think either player has really emerged as a superstar or even a star player by any means, but Alec Pierce just taking his game to another level down the field. Nick Cross finally getting in that starting lineup and being one of the brighter spots on this Colts defense this season. I think those have been pretty big wins for this Colts team. Now, again, there's room to improve with both these players. Nick Cross is certainly not the best in coverage. I think he's had some good moments, but we'd like to see a little bit more improvement. And Alec Pierce still needs to round out his overall game, but I think when you look at what the reasonable expectations for those two guys were coming into this season, they both have exceeded them. And we're looking at really good seasons from Nick Cross and Alec Pierce, still on their rookie contracts as well. So you could still see them get a little bit better. Nick Cross in particular is still a very young player. I think he's only 23, 24 years old. So if Nick Cross takes another step going into next season, you could have a really solid, strong safety on your hands. And you're really liking what you're seeing from him this season. Speaking of young players, Matt Gonsalves and Tanner Bortolini, I'm not saying these are major wins for the Colts, but when you take offensive linemen in round 3 and round 4 with the hope of them maybe being the future starters on your team, you want them to look solid in any of their showings that they put on the field in their rookie season. You don't want them to be stars out the gate, or you want them to be stars out the gate, but you don't expect them to be stars out the gate. But I think Matt Gonsalves has been really solid. It looks like he's getting better every single week, especially when he gets multiple weeks at one position. I think he starts looking better and better as he gets those reps underneath him. And he's looking like a pretty good rookie starter right now in place of Braden Smith right now at right tackle. So Matt Gonsalves having a good rookie season. Tanner Bortolini's looked good when he's gotten out there this season. I'm not saying these guys are for sure going to be able to match the play of the guys they are potentially replacing in terms of Ryan Kelly at his peak and Braden Smith at his peak. But I do think these two players are looking really promising, and that's a big win for a team that need to get younger and cheaper on the offensive line. So Matt Gonsalves, Tanner Bortolini, I think those are pretty big wins for the Colts this season. Going back to cornerback, the find of Samuel Womack on waivers for this Colts team might have saved this season from being top 10 pick, like bottom feeder type territory, because who knows what this defense looks like if it had to be Dallas Flowers starting all season outside corner, or David Long. We saw like one snap of David Long on Sunday, and it was a 30-yard double penalty that he somehow got out there. But finding a player like Samuel Womack, who, his play has kind of fallen off a little bit in recent weeks, but we've seen the interceptions come up a little bit. 2 interceptions the last 2 games. Could have been 3. He had a near interception as well against the Titans. And I think he's played some good football this season. Early in the season, very lockdown stuff, very just solid in coverage. In recent weeks, again, a little bit more volatile in coverage, but we're seeing more plays being made. He's making more plays on the ball and looking comfortable in his zone drops. So just finding a capable starting corner on waivers before the season, especially once Juju Brents went down, just having a player like Womack who could step up and play some snaps for you. I mean, a massive win. Really lucky, I think, for this Colts team to find a player like Samuel Womack. But regardless, it is a win for this team. Another big win. Josh Downs is just such a good player. I think we kind of knew this, though, back in his rookie season. You could see the glimpses and the flashes of what he could be. And I think we all kind of established in our brains, like, yeah, Josh Downs is one of the playmakers on this Colts team. But it feels like this year he's really put his stamp on that status. Like, he is a playmaker for this team. We saw it on Sunday, two long catches that he kind of created off of throws behind the line of scrimmage. We've seen multiple plays this season where he's been able to create after the catch, and maybe not even just create big plays, but create first downs off of throws short of the sticks. Josh Downs is truly a fantastic young wide receiver. And I do think if Richardson's able to put this together as a passer at any point in his career, Josh Downs should easily be a 1,000-yard receiver at some point in his NFL career. He's just too talented. He's too talented not to be a 1,000-yard receiver at some point. And I think he's going to get there one of these days in the next couple years for sure. Josh Downs, fantastic player. And then a minor win. Like, I don't think the overall season for Anthony Richardson is exactly what we would have wanted or expected coming into the year, but the little glimmer of hope is since the benching, Richardson has looked a little bit better. Again, if he's looked how he's looked post benching all season long, I think we're feeling okay going into 2025. I think it's a little more pessimistic now because of that early season stretch of play where it wasn't a great play from him. But we have seen a better Anthony Richardson post bye, even if it's still been inconsistent and some low lows like that Denver Broncos game. I still think overall this has been a better Anthony Richardson these past 5 weeks, and a Richardson that you can win games with. The Colts are 3-2 over these last 5 games with Anthony Richardson, and I mean, I know they haven't beaten any like juggernaut type teams, but I still like the progress of this team with Richardson post benching, and hopefully that can carry into next season if he's still the starter next year. So those are my wins for this Colts team this year. I don't think it's everything you want. Obviously, you want your wins to be making the playoffs and superstar players having career years and yada, yada, yada. But there are some wins to take away from this Colts team this year. Again, maybe not what we want, but yeah, a couple wins here and there, especially in the secondary. I mean, maybe because the expectations were so low, but the secondary having 3 of my wins right there with Cross, Womack, and Jones. I mean, we doubted the secondary, and we should have doubted every other position, I guess, on this roster coming into the year. But coming up, guys, we're going to go past the positivity of this team and talking about the wins to get into what I want this holiday season. So first up, we're going to talk about what I want this offseason, what kind of presents I could expect or hope for from this Colts team. And yeah, the offseason is going to be a big one for the Colts. So what I want from the Colts this offseason coming up in just a second. But first, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy football. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes your holiday bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30 million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. This past week, Jake and I were really looking at Jared Goff for more than 230 passing yards. Cha-ching, that one hit right there. And Saquon Barkley for more than 1 touchdown, which I believe that one hit. I think he only had the 1 touchdown. So we would have come up a little bit short on that one there. But that's the fun of Prize Picks. You can win some, you can lose some. But Prize Picks is always there for you. It's quick, simple, and so much fun to challenge myself and my friends. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Locked On Colts Everydayers, we are back. We had a little bit of a detour into positivity in the opening segment. That's not going to be a normal thing on this show, so I just wanted to get that out of the way to start off this show. But now we're going to talk about what I want this holiday season for the off season. Now, I could have easily moved up the rest of the season to the segment. It would have made more sense, in the scheme of this conversation, but the off season's more juicy. It's more exciting. It's more of what we want to talk about here. So I think the biggest thing we want this offseason is a couple changes on the defense. I know a lot of Colts fans were very frustrated with how that game finished on Sunday. A good start from this Colts defense, but they couldn't put the hammer down. They couldn't make that a blowout victory. And it got a little dicey there in the fourth quarter. I don't think it was ever as close as what some people thought, but it did get a little bit dicey in the fourth quarter for this Colts team because their defense couldn't put the hammer down on a bad Titans offense. So I do think we need to see some changes on the defense. I think you have some good core pieces, and DeForest Buckner's your superstar. Grover Stewart and Kenny Moore are your stars right behind him. Like your 2 good players right behind him. I mean, Kenny Moore, I might even put up a superstar. Grover Stewart is a good starter. Jaylon Jones and Nick Cross, I think, have some upside, and they're doing some good things. Zaire Franklin's a perfectly fine starting linebacker, but they need more out of the edge rush room. They need a linebacker next to Zaire Franklin. They need a safety next to Nick Cross. And they kind of need like a true number 1 corner, like a true difference maker number 1 corner. That's a lot of needs for a defense. And I think that, you don't have to address all of them this offseason, but I do think there needs to be some changes and some effort to make those changes on the defense rather than going into next season with a unit that's going to look overwhelmed again, like they have at times this season. So I'm looking at like maybe an impact veteran addition or 2, which it's probably asking for too much when it comes to Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard's certainly one of those cheap parents that gives you, I guess like cereal boxes or something, or socks for Christmas. But yeah, I would love to have a brand new PlayStation, aka a veteran addition to this defense this offseason. Maybe a new defensive coordinator. Again, you guys got all my thoughts on that a couple episodes ago, where I think ultimately I would move on from Gus Bradley, but I think he's shown some good things this year. So if you ultimately do go with him, you do need to make some changes. If you bring back Gus Bradley, you need a better linebacker next to Zaire Franklin if you are going to bring back Gus Bradley. But, that's more of a conversation for the offseason. But I do think some changes are needed on defense. And I think one of the bigger changes to that is they need a third star, like a third true difference maker on defense. For me right now, the true difference makers for the Colts are DeForest Buckner and Kenny Moore when it comes to the Colts defense. I don't know if they have a third guy on this roster. They need to somehow find a third true difference maker, whether that is in free agency. I mean, two guys they liked a lot in free agency this last offseason were Xavier McKinney and Daniil Hunter. Those guys became true difference makers for the teams they ended up going to. So there are opportunities to get a difference maker in free agency. This last offseason kind of showed that if the Colts would have been a little bit more aggressive going after those guys. It could also be a guy developing internally, and we haven't seen this recently with the Colts, but I I don't think Latu is too far away from potentially being that guy. Like, he has good pass rush win rate. I think the film is better than the stats, and I think he can get there. But I don't want to rely on a guy breaking out. Like, go out and get a veteran player to be your other difference maker. And then if Latu breaks out, oh my gosh, you have 4 on your defense from a team that only had 2. But I do think they need to get just another difference maker out here. It was great on Sunday to see DeForest Buckner impacting the game like he did early in the day, and then Kenny Moore coming with those 2 interceptions. But they just need another guy out there who can make those big plays, who can force a big turnover, who can force a big negative play, who can get that clutch pass breakup when they need it. I don't think they have that third guy on the roster right now. So I do think that will be a big thing for this Colts team in the offseason, is find that third difference maker. It could be a cornerback 1. It can be a linebacker next to Zaire Franklin, who's good in coverage and, make some big plays like we saw with Shaquille Leonard and Bobby Okereke in the past. It can be a safety next to Nick Cross. Again, your dream of an Xavier McKinney last offseason, maybe Javon Holland hits free agency, and that can be your big difference maker. But just bring me somebody who can step in and make a big impact on this defense and potentially be that third star. I think that would be huge for this Colts defense and get them over the hump from being this adequate defense against no matter who they go against. They're always adequate, to maybe being a team that's capable of shutting down a bad offense like the Tennessee Titans. Switching gears to the Colts offense, though, which kind of seems like the bigger issue of the two right now. I know I spent a lot of time on defense there, but I want to see a little bit more commitment to the run game next season. We've seen the Colts run rate jump up post benching for Anthony Richardson, which I think has been a good thing. We've seen this offense be a little bit better post benching, which has been a good thing. And I'm not saying I want to see them be an 85% run offense next season. That's ridiculous. Like, absolutely not. But I do want to see this be more of kind of what we've seen post benching from Anthony Richardson. Be a run first team and build the passing game off that. Build confidence in the passing game by running the ball well early on in games. That's what the Baltimore Ravens do. They don't go out there and they throw the ball 50 times a game. They build on the run game, and then when they do throw the ball, Lamar Jackson has a lot of space to throw it because, one, he's a great player, but also because they built off that run game early on in games, and they just beat the crap out of you with the run game, and then they hit you with the pass over the top. So yeah, build some commitment to the run game. Get a new tight end 1 who can block and catch. I think that's obviously the biggest need this offseason, is get a tight end 1. Get a legit RB2 who can break some tackles. Give me some thunder to JT's lightning, or vice versa. Get like a big, a really quick lightning kid, and Jonathan Taylor can be the thunder. Like, that's perfectly fine. But just get me another guy who's capable of carrying the load in the backfield, because more Trey Sermon snaps next year are going to make me rip out any remaining hair I have on my head, which isn't much, but it is going to make me rip that out. Maybe you could go for another offensive lineman as well, but I think the offensive line's feeling pretty good. But yeah, more tight end, more RB2. Keep building the just diversity in the run game. And I think this Colts offense can have a path to success next season with Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson. It's just, it can't be what it was early in the season, where it was throwing the ball so often early in games, getting yourself into a hole because your quarterback wasn't ready for that, and then you can't run the ball at all. So, like, let's establish the run a little bit more next season, and just be committed to being one of the top rushing teams in football. And I think they can be really good. Like, take off all the guardrails with this. Like, run Richardson, run Taylor, run whatever new running back you can bring in as well. Let's do this next season. And then my final point of what I want this offseason for the Colts is obviously the biggest one. Please, Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen somehow work out. That's the only, like, I do think both will be back next season. I think Steichen will be the head coach, and I think Anthony Richardson will be the starting quarterback for 2025 for the Colts. Please work out. Please work out, because it is grim thinking about what happens if it doesn't work out, which is starting over in a lot of ways, losing a lot of these players we've built up a connection to on this team that we all love and we all love rooting for on Sundays, even if they do frustrate us at times. It's about tearing. I mean, if this doesn't work out, you tear down the roster, you lose the GM, you lose the head coach, lose the quarterback that regardless of what you think of him on the field, he seems like a great kid. I want this thing to work out, man. And that would be the best thing this holiday season, come this offseason, obviously, is for something to click with Richardson and Shane Steichen, and this to be the long-term solution. It might not seem super likely right now because of the way this season has gone, but that is ultimately what every single Colts fan wants this offseason. Let's have this thing somehow work. If it somehow works, I will forget about the 2024 season and never think about it again, because I just want the future to be bright with these two guys. I really hope it works for them. But coming up, guys, we're going to shift gears and talk about what I want for the rest of the season from the Colts. I'm not really going to entertain the whole playoff stuff. Like, I got to see one more win from this Colts team, plus a little bit of help before I really indulge that conversation. But regardless, if they make the playoffs or miss the playoffs, whatever, let's talk about what I want to see just from this Colts team in the games the rest of the season. But first, the NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score. It is so thrilling. FanDuel had the Colts as 3.5-point favorites in this past game with an over-under of 42.5. The Colts almost blew that over-under out of the water by themselves. So hopefully all these high-scoring games keep coming for the Colts so you guys can keep racking up the W's on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And my Locked On Colts everydayers, the people I love out there, we're here talking about what I want this holiday season for the rest of the year for this Indianapolis Colts team. And this is more about what I want to see in the games, the rest of the year. Again, I'm not talking playoffs. I'm not talking anything like that. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but there are still 2 more games to get more data on this team, more reps for some players, and just to see this team 2 more times before we head into a very crucial offseason for this Colts team. So what do I want to see physically in these games against 2 complete bottom feeders? One, take care of business in these final 2 games. This is the type of season where if the Colts were to lose out, they still wouldn't get a top 10 pick because there's been so many bad teams in the NFL. So there's no point in quote unquote tanking or rooting for a tanking, unlike in 2022 when we were rooting for the Colts to lose down the stretch of that season so they could get their quarterback. There's really no point in hoping that. You're pretty much hoping for the 12th pick versus like the 15th pick. Like, it's really not that big a difference where the Colts could finish. So you might as well win out these games, get a winning season under your belt, and go into the offseason with a little bit of confidence at least. So I want some healthy multi-score wins. This Colts team has had so many one-score games this season. Heck, their only non-one-score games they've had this year have been their losses to, I think, the Buffalo Bills, the Detroit Lions, and the Denver Broncos. So every single win they've had has been a one-score game. I want to see a healthy game where they win by 2 or, dare I say, 3 scores in one of these games. It's very doable. The New York Giants are going to be starting someone like me this weekend. I don't know who they're going to be starting. Drew Lock just had a horrible game against the Falcons. I don't know who their quarterback is going to be. It's probably not going to be anyone good. It's a very good chance for the Colts to get a multi-score win and get out of this season feeling pretty good. The Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 18. Mac Jones is still their quarterback. I know they always have trouble with the Jaguars, but it is a chance to get out of that game with a multi-score win. So I just want healthy, clean, multi-score wins these last 2 weeks to feel a little bit good about something going into the offseason in terms of how they finish the year. Even if it's beating up on basement dwellers, at least you're beating up on them. It's better than a one-score win over a basement dweller. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, which I will certainly take that from this Colts team, and hopefully they can give it to us these final 2 games. When I say healthy too, like, please avoid the big major injury. The last thing you want right now is a guy to blow out an Achilles or tear his ACL in these 2 almost meaningless games in terms of like playoff positioning. Like, it would just be a terrible thing. So stay healthy, stay clean, take care of business in these 2 games, and get out of the season with some confidence going into the offseason. In terms of what I want to see on the field, though, clean game from Anthony Richardson. I want to see 2 clean games from him to finish the year. He's had a little bit of the turnover bug come back the past 2 weeks. It's been, a couple throws he's been baited into throwing, some forcing, and again, we want to see a little bit cleaner football from him. Like, if we're not going to see high-level offense in terms of passing the ball, at least keep it clean, keep the mistakes to a minimum so you give your team a chance to win. I just want to see some clean football from him. Obviously, you want to see some big passing games as well, but clean football. Don't force throws like he did on that interception last week against the Tennessee Titans. Protect the football when you're running, and give me some clean football games these last 2 games. Give me 200, 250 total yards, a touchdown or 2, and no turnovers. I'd feel very happy with that from Richardson in both of these final games, or one of these final games, either one, whatever. So give me some clean football from Anthony Richardson. I want some more positive reps from AD Mitchell. Maybe I just hope too much, guys. Maybe I just hope too much here. It's not been a great rookie season from AD Mitchell, but I see the vision. I see what he can be. He's always open. He's so fast. He's so athletic. And yeah, maybe mentally it's not 100% there with him, but we saw the long catch last week against Tennessee Titans. Like, you can see what he can be. And I just want to keep seeing more of it. So just give me a couple more positive reps like that. Give me a couple more quick separations. Give me like a long catch or 2. Like, give me some good third down plays. Like, just give me something to hang my hat on going into the offseason with AD Mitchell. Him and Anthony Richardson are kind of in the same boat in that regard, where it's like, give me some positive games to finish this year. I don't care who they're against, but let's ride into this offseason with some momentum with those 2 guys. I think that would be a really big thing for them. Also on the offense here, let's continue that run game dominance. This offensive line was clicking this past week. The offense was going just through the running game, and they were able to just destroy a helpless Tennessee Titans defense. I want to see them continue this run game dominance, because I think on paper, this should have been a top 5 rushing team in football this season with who they have at quarterback, who they have at running back, who they have on the offensive line with Ryman and Nelson. I mean, they came into the year with Fries. I know Fries has been out since week 6, but on paper, this should have been a top 5 rushing team. It obviously hasn't turned out that way this year for the team, but I want to see the flashes of what could have been this season. So keep the run game dominance going. Keep feeding Jonathan Taylor. Keep running Anthony Richardson. I want to see him get more and more reps running the ball. He's looking a little more comfortable running the football in recent weeks because he's getting more reps. So let's keep doing all that stuff there and get some good reps in the run game, again, to carry it into the offseason or maybe the playoffs. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic now. Maybe the playoffs. Who knows? But yeah, let's get the run game continued out these last couple games. And then the final one, let's get some run for some young guys. It doesn't have to be them starting over to Forrest Buckner, but let's get some more Adetomiwa Adebore. I want to see him a little bit more out there. Anthony Gould on offense. Jalen Carlisle, who got quite a few snaps this past week. That was great to see. Isaiah Land, I'd like to see him out there. And Juju Brents, who might be back this next week against the Giants. I would love to see some more run for Juju Brents because he's kind of a wild card right now. He's almost in the same bucket as a Jelani Woods, where it's it's probably not going to work out, but if it does, that's an extra player to have on this team. So let's get Juju Brents going, give him some reps, and maybe you can have a nice little outside trio of Womack, Brents, and Jones, feeling pretty good about them going into the offseason. So yeah, let's get some young guys some reps going. Obviously, Richardson falls into that bucket as well, but he's been getting his reps this year. But let's get some guys who maybe don't have that many reps this season, some extra reps in these final 2 games. And again, get out of this season healthy, clean, hopefully with some multi-score wins. And regardless of what happens with playoffs, get to 9-8, feel I mean, feel okay, I guess, about yourself. I mean, I don't know how great you feel about that, but maybe the Colts can talk themselves. No, the Colts will talk themselves into feeling great about that. I know we will all have different opinions, but you can feel at least a little bit better going 9-8 than going 8-9 and losing to one of these teams. So, just get clean and healthy these final couple games and come out of them with a couple of good wins. And let's get to the offseason where we have some real content coming for you guys. But I do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts the first listen today and every day. Now, next, go find Locked On NFL. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins afterwards. If you want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, follow at Locked On Colts, at JGarther NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' rating. We love your guys' ratings and reviews as well. And you guys have a great day, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.